This is the House Inhabit Depth vs. Heard Part 2 by Jessica Reed Krause, The Art of Gossip, this one's called. It's her blog on Substack. If you haven't subscribed to it, I suggest you do. This one was behind a paywall, but it was requested that I read Part 2. And because I enjoy her blog anyway, I went ahead and paid for the membership. It was suggested on a TikTok that it was put behind a paywall because people were legally reaching out. People are fascinated by the rich. Shakespeare wrote plays about kings, not beggars. All info offered here comes by way of gossip and hearsay, unconfirmed and alleged, but highly credible nonetheless. Gossip, the people connector. I have long professed that gossip is the great human connector, a theory I put to good use during this trial. I figured unearthing fragments of truth existed somewhere between the mainstream headlines and the YouTube fanatics. If the inside scoops match the evidence presented, it creates an ironclad defense for truth exposed. Style-wise, an ode to the late, great Dominic Dunne. Dunne, a literary inspiration to me as a teen. Back when I would rush home from school to devour his articles in my mother's glossy copies of Vanity Fair, smartly arranged narratives that came edged with gossip without scarifying the integrity. Articles and narrative I still miss to this day. Here she talks about her inspiration, Dominic Dunne, and a documentary called After Party. And I believe these are pictures of some highbrow gossip writers. The Dunne family, Hollywood's OG highbrow gossip perpetuators. I'm going to read the next parts because I find it interesting, but if you want to hear more about the trial excerpts, I would just fast forward a little. The center will not hold. Joan Didion recalls how Dominic's brother, John Dunne, would never hesitate to pick up the phone no matter how busy he was in the moment, if he knew a slice of juicy gossip awaited him on the other end. In the scene, she smiles brightly into the camera, recounting how much he delighted in any news of freshly breaking gossip. I don't care what anybody says about me as long as it isn't true. Truman Capote. The Dunne/Didion circle, if you recall, fueled their love of manifesting society canards into their work by inviting them into their home space. Didion, notorious for her splashy Hollywood dinners, drew the biggest celebrities of the era to sit shoulder to shoulder along her dining room table in Malibu. And Dunne surrounded himself with celebrities who eventually welcomed him into their world, creating a blurred dynamic where the stars he was covering were essentially performing for him in hopes of landing at the center of his deliciously eloquent framing, which of course they often did. In any case, gossip unites people of all status and interest because everyone likes to know what other people are up to, especially when it involves sinister circumstances. If there were ever a place where a lifelong obsession of digging into celebrity fodder and trivial details might shine, IG stories for me are it. Hence the B-tie deep dives, the cuff-link conspiracies, and the overly coiffed hairdo investigations. The Hair Chronicles were honestly, unfortunately, mostly critique-based, noticing how every new extreme updo seemed like a desperate attempt to create a completely different character in an effort to sidetrack from Heard's incredibly off-putting demeanor. That's so true. And her hairstyles were like, you had the Dutch braids, the French braids, and then you had the big S-wave. Anyway, I imagined her team standing around the bathroom of her chic Virginia Airbnb and decided if the bun was elaborate enough. It might successfully distract from the fact of it. Let's be honest, the wardrobe too wasn't much better. And wardrobe, like everything in that courtroom, matters a lot. I don't care so much for the expensive legal rundowns or the body language analysts that modern viewers eat up. I crave vicious style rundowns. Joan Rivers talking on Amber's overly harsh blush strokes with Liz Smith in heavy pearls on daytime television in a ship I know sailed decades ago upon an era I still mourn. Trashy 90s TV. Commentary unhindered by the concern of hypersensitive, easily insulted millennials is where my heart forever lives. But for now, we've got iPhone productions feeding public consumption, fueled by frantic scrolling, and that works fine too. Soundtrack. The soundtrack and the Depp Heard framing became another point of obsessive detail and cautious consideration. Sourcing songs to pair with daily court happenings consumes my focus, occasionally to the point of superseding everything else. I'd always rather be picking songs than reading documents, but the internet demands both. One random morning, when the Talking Heads' This Must Be the Place comes on the stereo, the line "Never for money, always for love" feels like a slick punch straight to my heart. The words echoing the main motive powering Johnny Depp in this trial, seeking to expose a calculated hoax that has ruined his name and reputation. It was never about money. The lyrics speak to the most poignant aspects of this busted, bloody love story with perfect poetic voice, pinning it as the official theme song to the saga unfolding before us. Out of all those kinds of people, you got a face with a view. I'm just an animal looking for a home. Share the same space for a minute or two. I feel numb. Burn with a weak heart. I guess I must be having fun. The less we say about it, the better. Make it up as we go along. And when I listen back to my recordings, I hear like a clicking sound. It almost sounds like nail clippers. I don't know what that is, if it's my headphone or it's stopping the recording, but I apologize for that. I don't know how to get rid of it. Because there's no shortage of songs dedicated to evil and conniving women, ruining well-meaning men. The Amber tracks pile up effortlessly. The Power Lesbians. The Power Lesbians of Los Angeles, I figure, are the most practical starting point for this DM invitation. Considering some of my existing connections, not counting Io, who, as I mentioned previously, obviously fell away once my bias towards Depp started to surface, bleed into Amber's inner circle. I know if I can get a few of these women to confide in me, others in that network will follow. Gossip breeds more gossip, and when you're willing to speak to people without judgment, clouding your intentions, they tend to miraculously open up. With motives strictly focused on piecing together truth, trust comes easily secured. The people reaching out to me know I don't care who they are or what they're attached to. I just want their honest take as a contribution to this whole unraveling. Much of what I receive from these varied sources piece together the picture of this Hollywood love story weeks before it's painted for us in the court. The stories about Johnny are almost boring in their sweetly matched sentiments, all supporting the image of a humble guy with a penchant for dark humor and generous gifting. I receive only good things about Depp from all kinds of people, industry-based and personally connected, all eager to share their own experiences with him. The guy who will remember your birthday, dress up as Jack Sparrow to cheer up a newly grieving kid, or leave a handwritten note of thanks on your desk. The only negative scoop was an email from a woman who worked on a private plane her husband owned, where Depp was apparently 2 days late for boarding. Email copied and pasted below. Tuesday, May 3rd, 5:27. My husband is a private jet pilot and has flown JD. When all this was going down years ago with AH, my hubs had to go to the Bahamas to pick him up from his island. He was 2 days late. Not 2 hours, 2 days. I was pissed. If I recall correctly, he was picking JD up to fly him back for his deposition. Can we confirm if he was days late for his deposition? I used to have the flight manifest with the list of passengers and what their catering order was, but I can't find it. And then when he was still with AH, my hub's old company, not my husband, picked him up and JD lit a cig mid-flight, and the pilot went back to tell him no smoking, and JD got in the pilot's face and Amber was screaming for him to stop. The pilot threatened to land the plane right then and there and kick him off. And JD settled down. That's my JD insight. I used to hate him after that because celebrities piss me off. I'm a private jet flight attendant, and a lot of celebs literally don't realize when they are a-holes and late that we have families we are trying to get home to see. In comparison, the stories about Amber were much darker, far more damaging, and abundant. The messages came from ex-friends, ex-lovers, industry insiders, even a couple famous faces, all attesting to reckless behavior, excessive drinking habits, and violent bouts of anger towards her friends and her family. She was stunningly beautiful, intoxicatingly so. Everyone, men and women, fell under her spell. What the hell is wrong with people? I really don't understand. She drinks 2 bottles of wine a night, loved taking Molly with it. I saw her beat the out of Whitney more than once. If you don't worship her, she wants nothing to do with you. All she cares about is her image, what she looks like in the media. She's a full-on dyke. Rocky was the golden child in our group. She loved everyone fighting over her attention. She loved the jealousy between us all. Io was in love with her, and she totally abused that adoration. At the end of the day, she's still a girl from Texas. She knows how to turn up the Southern charm, keep a tidy house, spoil her guy, and make herself into whoever she needs to be to elevate her status. She loved the idea of being Johnny Depp's wife, but it got old quick, and she was tired of pretending. He was boring to her. Boring? Wow. We traveled like queens on his dime. We would pay for our stay in castles around Europe and whatever trips she wanted to take us on. Her main goal is to smear him. I don't even think it's about the money. I know her. She won't stop. There were also multiple accounts of her being excessively rude to serving staff anytime she was out with friends. Some from those in her party, some from those who served her and were personally insulted. My inbox was full with details about how conniving she is, supposedly armed with an ability to become whatever she needed to be for whomever was the center of her target. First Johnny, then Elon, a knack that aided in her rotation of flings and affairs with everyone from extras on set to directors aboard to producers and a couple young in-demand actresses we know on a first-name basis. She was who they wanted her to be. She could make one feel like they were the only thing that mattered to her. A character note reminiscent of the descriptions of Maxwell in her early days. Also described as a commanding force in a social setting that demanded all eyes and attention focus on her, but could zero in on any one person in that room to make them feel like the most significant one in the crowd. One rock star's wife was candid and uncensored in recounting her personal experience with Amber. Also first to confirm the rumors that Elon Musk was footing the cost of her legal fees because of whatever dirt her held over him. Detailed below. She walked up to husband and slapped him hard across the face, then said, "Stay away from my man, you," and then stormed out of the room. She was always trying to isolate Johnny from his oldest friends. This was happening when they were just dating also. Their engagement party was a disaster. She was screaming at Johnny the entire time, except when photos were being taken. He was so overwhelmed by her, he spent a good deal of the time at his own engagement party upstairs hiding from her. That's sad. Amber used and uses sex as a weapon to secure film roles. She did this with 3 producers and everyone knew the stories. Impossible to work with. Don't let her get you alone in your trailer or she'll try to have with you. She often tried to turn Lily Rose and Jack against their father. That's really messed up. She would text them insanely inappropriate things and try to involve them with fights. The day Betty Sue died was horrible. The list goes on. I'm sure I'll remember more, but she did poop on that bed. She did cut off his finger. She's everything you hear and worse. Jesus. I can confirm the E stuff. Amber absolutely has video evidence of a sex party that involved a minor. I'm going to repeat. I'm just reading stuff right now that's alleged. It's hearsay. It's credible, like she said, nonetheless, but it is based on hearsay and is all alleged and speculation. This was told to me by a few people, but also ones who are involved in the trial. Amber hated the first ring JD gave to her and rejected it. There are many photos from around the engagement era where you will see JD wearing the resized first ring. I saw him wearing that ring myself, actually. Not in person, but pictures of it, several. Johnny made a joke of it, but it cost a fortune, and she turned her nose at the very gesture. Wow. A had a penchant for keeping JD intoxicated and starting arguments before morning, afternoon work obligations. She prided herself in the power she had over him. One afternoon before a charity event, she had kept him up so late his team couldn't wake him up. It was scary. Johnny was always exhausted. He used to fall asleep on the floor of my house. He was afraid of her. And then she'd take pictures of him. And that coincides with all the recordings I have on my conversation, of their conversations on my channel. She's sick. Hollywood. The industry knows what a liability and disaster she is. Another reputable source who provided proof of her connection to her advised screenshots and text messages told me Amber was in fact a contributing factor behind the breakups of a few major celebrity splits. Notably Liam Hemsworth and Miley Cyrus and Channing Tatum and Jenna Dewan. Everyone in their circle knew about these fallouts long before it was divulged in court that Depp had accused Amber of cheating on him with both. SpaceX rumors. The Elon Musk side note evolved gradually but was addressed early on. I knew he was a shadowy subplot to this trial, but had no idea how that would expand. In the second week, I had two separate women reach out in emails, one claiming SA accusations at SpaceX were starting to leak, and another who summarized what her friend told her about the underlying motives in his attachment to this case, again confirming blackmail at the root of it. Email copy and pasted. Okay, so here is what I do know. A client of mine works at Spaceport Nuquai, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, Nuquai, and he has Skyped a lot with Elon about SpaceX having involvement in Spaceport Nuquai and built somewhat of an occasional friendship. Can provide proof of occupation there and the Elon connection. Elon spoke quite a bit about things that weren't going to do with work, and about how fed up and physically drained he is and how much trouble this is causing in his personal life. He continued to talk a lot about Amber and straight up told my client that he deliberately got Amber very mediocre lawyers and not the best of the best. It's starting to make sense to me now because he doesn't want her to win. He isn't a fan of hers and wants her to go down just as much as the rest of us, because she does have dirt on him. But once JD wins this case, that dirt will disappear and be made up to be more of her lies and slander. Unfortunately, no info about the potential Elon baby. So disappointed. Sad face. The embryos. And then came the fertility sources, rushing to confirm the fact of embryos created and paid for at an LA fertility clinic. 6 healthy embryos. 4 boys and 2 girls. I spoke on the phone to one who counseled Musk and Heard through the embryonic process while they were dating at the time. The source described the two of them as a regular couple, not overly affectionate, but pleasant. She said Elon was the more engaging of the two and noticeably excited by the scientific explanations regarding the process. That's my born embryo you're hearing. Sorry about that. In speaking with multiple sources on this subject, I went back and read through the Grimes article in Vanity Fair, where she describes her relationship with Musk as very complicated in a way most people would never understand. Grimes discussed the birth of their new daughter via surrogacy, meaning both women were likely pregnant with Elon's embryos around the same time, knowing Musk's not-so-secret plot to dominate the future by spreading seed and breeding offspring. It all added up. Wow. And as Jennifer Howell would later recount, which I'm going to do a video on her declaration too, I have it half made right now. As Jennifer Howell would later recount in a conversation with me detailing her visit to Whitney shortly after she had given birth, all Amber's mother wanted to talk about was Amber and these embryos and how she was set for life now that she had them in her legal possession. Wow. Like mother, like daughter, I guess. I have info on Musk and Heard if you want it, confirming the egg retrieval surrogate story. Can't share specific names of the connections because of the NDA in place. Strong genetics at play below. And that's when she shows these pictures. Elon with his babies. Amber's Instagram post with hers. And she posted on Twitter too, I think. Grimes, Elon, and their baby. Again. Okay. With the onslaught of anti-Amber sources under my belt, the bias I was operating on grew stronger, confidently supported thanks to consistently mounting proof from those who knew her. I didn't need any further convincing regarding her role in this hoax. but I was diving deeper into the nature of her connection to Musk, where it started and why it lasted. The details always led back to these kink parties that would come to be described in great detail to me by more than a few who attended them, and where I started to realize the story I was framing for this trial was not the one I was ending up with behind the scenes. And then you can see the next chapter, which is part 3 on my channel as well. It's a purple thumbnail. Hope you enjoyed this reading. I'm grateful for her blog. It's very interesting and informative. If you made it this far and you enjoy these, let me know in the comments and I'll keep doing them, sharing the ones that I really enjoy as well.